Magic. So yeah, we're trying to make it a surprise, and um, I think there's going to be, like you said, the agua fresca. We're going to have some slushies. We're going to have some other fun things. We have a collab that's going to be releasing out. There's going to be, so yeah, I think it's a surprise all the way around. Like I was mentioning with Evan, going out and driving to get things, and then we had to send somebody out today to get I don't know, out to it was grown somewhere to get pineapple juice. Uh, Once again, 25 pounds of that. So, or gallons. So it's a funny thing that I love. He's like a mad scientist, and it's going to be something unique and fun. And yeah, that's all we're trying to say. Because I think it's two things. If you start doing something and it doesn't turn out perfect, right? That's where we are. That's why we will dump beers when we will not release them. But also, right, we want to. It has to be the best, and if it isn't, we're not going to release it. So that's why a lot of times when you're doing these things, he's probably got 50 things in his head of what he wants to do, and he's going to get to like 30 of them. So, anyways, yeah, no surprise.
All right.
Nothing that you're going to be able to tell anybody.
All right. I'll without completely spelling it out, I'll ask one question. Maybe you can tell me if I'm warm or cold, or you can be the odds maker and set odds on just how on base or off base this might be. But maybe the Green Cheek fan in me can dream. Thinking about let's do a segment from Frenchie's Friends and In the Tank. If I'm to speculate here, Green Cheek posted on Instagram March 17th of 2022. Hosted a collab day with the legendary Corey King of Side Project Brewing out of Maplewood, Missouri. Big stout went straight into barrels. I'm thinking, Brian, this was a little over a year ago, so it might have had plenty of time. Maybe there are some coconut excursions that could play into this whole thing. I don't know if you can tell me if I'm right or if I'm just way off base. But if you were to
I
set odds on anybody who's been keeping that in the back of their mind for the past year and change, is that reasonable or totally insane?
It could be in the realm of, I wouldn't do a 50-50 on it, but you could, I don't know, you might want to hedge bet on that, but it could be that. It could be. But there's been a lot of people been hanging around us, right? A lot of
Mm-hmm.
different breweries that, have been showing up and nobody even knows about them. So, but yeah, it's a good guess. I appreciate the fact that you're doing your homework, and that could be it.
All right. Well, I will just quote Dumb and Dumber and let you know that you're saying there's a chance. So no
There's
guarantees, but can't wait to find everything out for sure in short order here. And Brian, as we think about Green Cheek marking its 6-year anniversary, a two-parter here. When you think about the next 6 years in Green Cheek's history, anything come to mind if there's an area that's really gone well for you guys in which you're most looking to double down on experiences from the first 6 years? And on the flip side, is there anything that you might be most eager to change from Green Cheek's first 6 years?
wow. I think I think wine has been one of the ones sort of, I don't say double down on, but want to explore more of. We have so many things that we want to do without being stupid. I guess is really the funny part of it, because when you go outside of your wheelhouse, sometimes you lose that thing that made you what you are. Um, so I would say the wine and maybe coffee, but I think it's always gonna be small, not big enough to actually be a problem. So there's things out there that because and I've turned into a coffee freak because of Evan, because now I can't have a normal cup of coffee. I have to have to grind the beans myself. It has to be a pour over at certain temperatures and certain times and certain weights. So I'm like he said, he's killing me. He's making me into this, foodie slash, it's not doesn't taste good enough. So I think double down on the quality over quantity. Um, and then things that would change, that's a hard one. Um, I don't know if I would have, pandemic happened. I bought a brewery 2 months before that. I might have rethought that if I would have a. It turned out great, right? We're crushing it there. It's beautiful. We love the crew. But yeah, maybe might not have done that. But other than that, I don't know. We've been pretty, I don't know, blessed in the people we have and the locations we have. So there's not a lot of regrets.
When you talked about wine as something to, I think in your words, not necessarily double down, but maybe expand in areas like that, I would love to use this as an
Mhm.
opportunity to really leverage your expertise as the CEO and knowledge on the business of beer. I think about Green Cheek's portfolio and how much diversification there is. Again, a lot of bettors want a diverse portfolio, same with a lot of investors. I feel like Green Cheek's taking a pretty similar approach when it comes to not just different styles of beer, but going beyond beer. You touched on wine. Also, seltzer, lavender lemonade seems like it's been a complete home run for you guys.
Yeah.
Slushies have been gaining in popularity across the industry, and I feel like Green Cheek is at or near the forefront of that trend. Sangria, playing off of wine, also a pretty
Mhm.
recent addition to the portfolio, and even food at various locations. How would you describe some of the pros and cons of diversifying pretty far beyond just beer?
Well, like you're saying, in betting and in investing and everything else, I look at us that we're, I don't say the hospitality suite industry. It's are a beverage company, right? Happens to make, you know, food also. But I think, the diversifying, you have to keep your pulse on what's going on and give them what they want. That's, I think, the easiest thing with most of the things that we do. Make sure it's the best thing that you can do. Um, so I think you have to diversify business wise, because like you said, lavender lemonade is, the seltzer thing was, Truly, and all those things happened, I don't know, years ago. We never did that until, it took us, I think, 9 batches we'd have dumped because it was never good enough. And we finally got the base, and then we're like, oh God. And then the lavender happened, and all of a sudden people have gone bananas for that. And we get hate mail when we run out of cans. Like I was having a wedding, and I needed 4 cases, and you don't have it. And it's like, I want to sell it to you, I swear. So yeah, I think this is that thing. I get into this with a lot of the different brewery owners that are the traditionalists, like I say. And God, I love them, and I don't want them to fail, but you need to look outside of that box. You can't just, some people aren't fortunate enough to just have one beer that covers it. And if it's a German style or a German lager or some certain beer,
An 805 for Firestone.
yes, and you get caught up in that, 85% of your sales are that one thing. What happens if that thing changes? Or so, anyways, yeah, I think on our side, I think we're always going to, especially I haven't pushed the envelope. I'm always going to look at the numbers and say, hey, dude, we need to pull back a little bit. But I think that's what's good about our yin yang, is that he will always look for something and like, hey, let's take a look at this. We'll test the wine. We're going to do some Abarino, and we'll see where that goes. And, that we have 37 cases of it, not a lot. It's fun. It's really good. I want to give him shit and say him it's, not good. I'm not gonna tell him it's good to his face. I'll let him know that I'll be like, hey, I don't know, man. It's about 80%. You can get there better, Even though I'm like, this is damn good, and I want to get my 2 cases and put it in my, in my wine cellar. So, anyways, yeah, I think you need to diversify in all aspects of business to be cutting edge, and something might not work, right? Dry IPAs. I mean, you use certain things. You're like, I don't know if we'll do that again. But you give it a shot, and you try to make it the best you can.
And if we've touched on having a diverse portfolio, I think another piece of advice that people would take away from any like business 101 type of seminar would be the law of supply and demand. I've got to ask you about a beer like triple dry hopped the other Brian. I mean, I'm talking to the eponymous person behind this beer. This is a triple dry hopped hazy double IPA, 100% citra hops, and this is on the short list of the best hazy IPAs I've ever had. Unfortunately for me, there's only been one batch released thus far that came this past January. And I'm wondering, Brian, what your point of view might be when it comes to giving people what they want versus keeping them wanting more.
It's I think it's a fine line with most of us, right? If you get what you want all the time, are you going to always want that? With that same comment, though, you don't want to get them mad. But I think what it is, it's about, aligning with the hops that you're getting, the malt, the ingredients, right? If it all aligns, like this would be a perfect, other brine, right? Maybe it's a double, maybe it's a triple, right? So I think It's always and it's weird. I don't know. There's a fickle world, right? So we what do 2 or 3 beers a week. Try to, and they're always a different take, a different variation. You won't get bored if you come to our place. There's always gonna be something rolling out, and they tend to be in the same vein. Certain beers, we're not, a lot of stuff we'll do, but not a lot of. We tend to be, lager, German, Pilsner, West Coast, haze. Um, but we'll do stouts, and we'll do a little wit. We'll do a little certain other things, just to see, stretch our legs and see, can we make it the best? Because once again, we're very picky. If it's something we wouldn't drink, we dump it, and that's a hard thing to do as a business. To you're like, Jesus, man, that's 5 this quarter, right? And it's not so much, it's just probably 90% of other breweries would put it out without even thinking about it. And that's on my side. I'm like, dude, can't you? My standard question was like, can you do something with this? You got to be able to do something with this beer. So, and it's and no, it's time to go is basically what it is. And that my point is get out of the tank, then get something good in there. So, anyways, yeah, I think wanting to give them what they want, and the supply and demand side, yeah, let them want them wanting some more. The other Brian, people love it. It is truly one of our best selling, most talked about beers. That beer just from the day one hit. And we're lucky if we get it 3 or 4 times a year, in some variation.
And I feel like as you walk through that, I thought of the tension between always on versus always new. I mean, I dream of a world where the other Brian or Radiant Beauty, a spectacular West Coast IPA that you guys make, is always available at a Green Cheek location.
Yeah.
And I think of a brewery like Other Half, a very prominent brewery that recently made the shift to a model of select core beers such as Green City and All Citra Everything, a couple of their bigger IPAs, or even more locally at Highland Park Brewery, you can almost always get Timbo Pills or Hello LA, their Hoppy Pilsner and West Coast IPAs, respectively. Do you have any sort of point of view when it comes to Green Cheek, perhaps adopting some flagship beers that could one day be in that always on type of classification?
Yeah, I think so. I think just the seltzer side, we
Mhm.
almost can't be out of lavender lemonade just because it's become so popular. Both cans, we're probably never going to wholesale those, right? They're going to have to come to us, or we ship online, so you can get them the next day. But I think our German beer, BIER, is probably going to be one of those because it's a great classic, beautiful beer that we love having, people love. So I think we're going to get to a spot, and if it's Radiant Beauty, member IPA, one of those might become that beer. So, and the whole thing is when you do that, you take up time and tank, and so we're trying to get out to a little more wholesale just to give us a bigger footprint outside of our 3 locations and the ones that we're going to be opening. But I think yeah, it's hard to be core because a lot of failures are in that just image, right? Because what happens if your rating becomes 85% of your beers that you sell, and that's all you're known for now? Like, great, right now we're going to spend all of our tank time. Everything's going to be for that beer, which sounds really good. But then, what about the 3 that you're releasing every week because you let those tanks rotate, and some magic happens out of it. So that's why I said that's that weird duality of trying to make it work on both sides, because I'm telling you, it's damn hard not to project and to sell when you don't know the beers are going to be coming out until 4 weeks before or 6 weeks before, because they're popping in their heads in the brewery like, hey, let's do this. So good and bad sides of both.
And the hard part, I'd imagine, might not stop when it comes to what beer to make, or how to manage the space you've got in the brew house, but also when it comes to something like packaging. I think of a recent interview you gave on the Full Pint podcast last month with friend of this show, Danny Full Pint. You talked about witnessing an evolution in packaging over the years, where it used to be all about 22-ounce bombers and those dark brown glass bottles, and now 16-ounce cans seem to be all the rage. And from my point of view, I feel like 16 ounces can be quite a commitment for bigger or bolder styles. Oftentimes, an 8 to 12 ounce pour would be ideal. And I get that
Yeah.
with these taller 16-ounce cans, a lot of cool like sticker art going on in the packaging, plenty of visual appeal. I must say, Brian, I kind of feel like 12-ounce cans may have some
Yeah.
practical appeal with certain styles. And I saw that Society recently started releasing IPAs and distribution in that 12-ounce format.
Yeah.
Late beers, I know Green Chica is done in 12-ounce
Yep.
cans. I believe Let's Prost would be an example of
Yep.
that. Is there any chance we might see some IPAs or bigger beers in that 12-ounce can format as well?
I think yes is the short. It could be. I think it comes down to because it's the cost. It's the cost to get those 12-ounce beers in those size packages.
Mhm.
It's not as economical. And on our side, we fight with it because between the label, the can, the lid, right, the pack tech, all those, it's 10 times the cost of the beer in the actual vessel. So that's why, you're looking like, okay, the 16s are the most economical for us to get out. Um, but you're right. I mean, you have a triple 16 ounces. That's a hell of a commitment. You're gonna get hurt if you're like doing certain. That's why I love when, I mean, we've all had it. You've had you have these triples and you're tasting. You're like, this tastes
Wood
like a
test.
regular. Yes, I'm like, I'm gonna get. This is gonna hurt me. So, but you're right. I would say yes, but it's getting to that side where we're not a wholesale brewery, right? So the 16s are meant for more of the wholesale bigger locations, the Vons, the Bevmos, the things like that, which we don't do, and I don't see any time at all we'll be doing that, at least in this iteration of a business model. But yeah, I think, like I said, I love the idea, but like I said, there are certain times and places for that for us, and until we get in a better spot of like, yeah, we should be doing them all in 16s or say 12s. We'll probably stick to the 16s.
Understood. Well, one more question for you on the business specific side of things. When it comes to Green Cheek's locations, currently 3 spots, as we've touched on: Orange, Costa Mesa, and Sunset Beach, which is basically like North Huntington Beach, if
Yeah.
I'm correct in my geography. And I've heard you tease that there could potentially be 2 more locations coming soon. Anything you can share on where those locations might be and roughly when people might be able to expect them to open?
It's funny. I'm always projecting. So I'm saying I would like to get in the next 6 to 12 months at least one more location. I'm trying to get out towards Inland Empire, out towards the Corona Riverside, that side of the world. It's funny. A lot of our sales come from there. It's that's what's good about metadata, data analytics. You can see where your credit card sales are coming from. A lot of it is from there. So I'd like to get something out there. Now it's harder for us logistically. Right now everything's about anywhere from 12 to 15 miles away from each other in a triangle between the 3 locations. This one's going to be way outside of that. So one is that way. I'd like to, and the other one is South County. I'd like to get somewhere down there. I'm always looking. I want to own the buildings if I can. So that's our goal with these 3 locations, is owning those locations. So we'll keep looking for spaces like the ones that we've got, right? They were all sort of opportunities that happened because you couldn't make it, and you have to make the deal, and it's always a win-win. Nobody said they lost in the deals that we had with with what the things we got. Ideally, it's not great. Nobody wants to fail in a way, but also guys, we're just here to facilitate. If this works for you and me, that's great. So, but yeah, I would go. We're going out that way, and then South County for the next. I think the next 2. Now there might be somewhere else beside that, because it's fun about all of this on my side. Evan gets to be creative on the beer and what goes on. I get to be creative on like, hey, we could really turn this into. I have 10 ideas a week of locations. I'm seeing this, and so it's fun. Like, okay, how do you, because I have to do the break even analysis. I have to make sure that it's all going to work. So it's that funny thing where I have to be responsible and say, I'm always like, where's the shoe going to happen? Like, there's going to be an issue. I have to protect us and insulate us from that. So I'm always going to be looking. So if an opportunity happens, it could be a week from today, and like, yep, we're doing that. So anyways, yeah, that's sort of the idea.
Yeah, as you outlined that approach on your side, running the business operation, I'm reminded a lot of bettors checking out odd screens, and maybe they don't like the Chargers or the Steelers this week, but they're just looking for a specific number. And if it flashes, they're ready to bet it immediately. And if
Yep.
it doesn't flash, they're just going to wait and wait. And maybe it pops before kickoff. Maybe it doesn't, and you take it or leave it. So
Yep.
I see a good parallel there between a prudent business approach and a prudent betting approach. And Brian, as plugged in as you are to the business side of things with Green Cheek, I know you're pretty well connected when it comes to the hoppier side of things as well. And one of my favorite segments on this show, a recurring bit, I love to weave the the props. That's the betting side of things. Weave the hops into props and hops. And I've got to ask you, I've got somebody representing Green Cheek on this show. If you could share any insight you have personally or through Evan or some of your connections
Yeah.
at the brewery, some of the most overrated and underrated hops on the market right now.
It's funny, and I threw this out to Evan because I love his take on this, because truly, I mean, between Gun YCH and he was just down in New Zealand, in Australia, New Zealand hop selection, and he's got his finger on the pulse, and it's fun to sort of listen to him and what's going on. So I went to him directly for this because I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have Yoda answer some of these questions specifically, because, and because I love hearing this, because I hear it in the background all the time, which is so much fun. Like I am the fly on the wall when you have like 5 of the best brewers sitting there talking about stuff. And, a lot of times it's truly is like clicks and whistles, like dolphins. Like, I'm like, what the? So when I gave him these, I was like, Ev, I need you to answer some of these questions, because I have my take on it, but I'm not the god in this thing. And so most overrated hop, Galaxy is what he's saying. Overrated.
Yes, thank you.
He said, I'll read it exactly. They end up blending together the good Galaxy lots with the bad Galaxy lots, and makes for a really underwhelming hop. Pair that with hop difficult it is, how difficult it is to work with, and no wonder why brewers are less of it. Most underrated hops, crystal hops, Oregon grown, noble type varietal, but with the fresh hop character that we can't get enough of. So, yeah, crystal is his new love.
That's awesome. I'll keep an eye out for more when it comes to crystal hops and the Galaxy. That's I was kind of hoping for one of 2 answers, and Galaxy was one of those. So glad to hear. I mean, for me, it's a matter of personal taste. For Evan, it's naturally much more scientific and a lot more objective in the fact that if good lots get mixed together with bad, then it probably makes his job tougher as well, let alone what the drinker's getting at the end of the day.
No, I love. There was a story I remember hearing him. I don't know, like a week or 2 ago, and they were in someone's in conversation how much they love Galaxy, and he's like, "Nope, I hate them. They're freaking terrible." And I was like, "Well, there that goes." It's like, sure, man. I just thought it was hilarious, though. He doesn't. He's doesn't hide the fact of this, like the things that he likes and doesn't like. So, anyways, I think it's hilarious.
All right, this might be my first time with a chance to bond in a way over a general, I don't know, disdain might be too strong, but yeah, Galaxy hops, they're very sexy in beer geek circles. They don't cut it for me either, so I'll take it as a compliment that that happens to align with Evan and his masterful knowledge and his taste. Well, Brian, keeping the conversation between us as well, I want to dig into a fun segment to maybe talk about food and beer pairing potentials within the Green Cheek portfolio. So there's a segment on this show that regular listeners will know. I've dubbed it the Malinsky Minute as a nod to the late, great sports betting legend, David Malinsky. And while he was a sports betting legend, he's one of the most well-rounded, articulate people I've ever come across in any walk of life. And he and I love to nerd out on not just craft beer, but food and beer pairings.
Yep.
So to kick things off, I will share one grievance with you about Green Cheek's breakfast burrito.
Yeah.
It's simply too good to be available for only 6 hours a week at one location. I go ahead.
Completely agree with that. And it's funny that we got on for that burrito because and I keep saying, it's first it was like a vegetarian. I'm like, this isn't vegetarian. This tastes too good to be vegetarian. So it is definitely a funny thing. I love that thing too. And it's these are the things that look, we're a brewery that happens to serve food. But yeah, I think you're right. I think we need to get that as a more staple of what we do. So
If this
yes,
podcast can accomplish one thing that I'd be most proud of, unless if that side project collab stout gets released Saturday, I'll be proud of that. But if this burrito can be available for more than 6 hours a week, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays at Sunset Beach, that will be quite the achievement as
I
well.
love that.
And I'll use that as a jumping off point for thinking of a food and beer pairing of
Mhm.
any green cheek menu possibility that you could put together.
Yeah,
I'll kick it off and note that I would love to pair this burrito. It's one of the best. We're spoiled in Southern California. A lot
yeah.
of good options, but the tater tots, avocado, and cheese sauce just take it over the top.
Yep.
And I would say that I would like to pair it with beer. You mentioned it earlier, the Hella style lager that you guys make, BIER. First off, if we're doing a pairing with this breakfast burrito, it's still early because 12 p.m. is the cutoff from a serving standpoint.
Yeah.
So I still want to take it easy at noon, if not a touch earlier. And beer is the perfect selection there. It's crisp, light, and refreshing. I also think some bready, biscuity tasting notes could play really well off of the burrito. So, Brian, if you had to create one green cheek food and beer pairing, what comes to mind?
To me, it's always the West Coast IPA, which uh, and our smash burger, the fat content, the savoriness, and then the West Coast IPA, like the fruity notes, the right, all the fun tropical that goes with that, and the bitterness. So to me, that's always been a fun, because it's like eat the burger, drink some beer, great, eat some more, right? So to me, that was always, and that was Evan said the same thing. So he was funny. I'm sort of pairing up what Evan has too, but the same thing. I think it's the fun, just and it's bad for you because it's so good. That's the sad part of it, right? Like this can't be good. This is too good to be good for me. So, anyways, yeah,
I guess that's why I try to only drink on non-school nights, and then I can feel a little less guilty about it. But I've had that experience in Orange with a double smash burger and a West Coast IPA, and I kind of like to think of it as a self-cleansing ecosystem in my mouth because, yeah, the burger, it's got some fatty texture, some oil, and then a West
right.
Coast IPA that's nice and dry and crisp can just like really wash it away, and it's just like, all right, reset, just
Yep,
set him up, knock him down. It's an amazing experience.
yeah, that's mine.
All right, that's a very worthy answer. Brian, we are coming up on the 1 hour mark, so I'd love to wrap it up with a few
Yeah,
questions. It's a rapid fire round.
get it.
You can have one glass of any green cheek beer that you guys have made to date. What is it?
It's funny. Evans is whatever's in the bright tank, right?
Mm,
It doesn't get better than that. That his thought of uh, one glass. Me, I don't know. Australian for pale, I kind of love.
mm.
So because it's like in between both worlds for me. So that would be sort of I think me. But
It
Evans,
doesn't have Galaxy in it, does it, with a name like that?
no, I love it,
All
man.
right. All right, cool. We
Check
can
it out.
accept it. All right, full transparency. I'll throw one out as well.
Yeah.
Twice the Burden,
Mhm.
bourbon barrel aged imperial stout.
Oh my
This beer to me was worlds colliding because it was a collab between my favorite brewery in Green Cheek and Horace Aged Ales, which is based out of my hometown in Oceanside. Aside from that, it's a spectacular beer. Notes of chocolate, vanilla, great bourbon barrel character,
Mhm.
a mouthfeel that's just silky smooth, and it is a rich beer. So I think, especially for this question, while it's such a good beer, a little goes a long way. So one glass seems quite sufficient.
Yep. Yep.
All right, Brian, moving this right along, you can have an unlimited supply of any one Green Cheek beer for the rest of your life. What do you go with for this one?
Limited supply. I still think it's probably beer for me. Beer is just that I love it. I can drink it all the time. Um, so the BIER, right? We could do that the rest of our thing, and I could just be happy. So unlimited supply, I think, for the rest of my life would be that. Um, uh, and Evan, I'm going to read Evans. It's
Yeah, let's do it.
I couldn't do it. It's one of the reasons why we release so many beers a week. I love to drink a range of styles of beers, crushable
Mhm.
lagers, West Coast IPAs, pub ales, sours, stouts, lavender lemonade, and so on. So, yeah, I don't think he would swim off the island or whatever it was to get all the others. So, yeah,
All right. I appreciate his outside the box approach, and I
Yeah.
appreciate you getting his input for these questions as well,
Oh
because I
yeah.
think a lot of the audience that's in the know would love to hear his thoughts on these questions as
Yeah.
well. I'm going to answer more in your lane here and say Let's Prost, which is a Kolsch
Mm,
style beer that you guys have done,
yeah.
I believe, a couple batches of, one in the tall 16-ounce cans and one in the 12-ouncers
Well,
that has been packaged to go. Just like beer, it's crisp and crushable. I think you've got that drinkability for days working in its favor. And with Let's Prost specifically, I think that kind of like beer, a little bit bready. Maybe it's just me. I get maybe a touch of citrusy notes or something else
mhm.
in Let's Prost that really resonates with my palate. I think it's a clear cut above the macro lagers out there, but it's just as approachable. So for a lifetime supply, I think that could hit the spot for just about anybody.
I would agree with you. That's agreed. Yeah.
All right,
Very
Brian,
interesting beer.
final question here for listeners who might be getting some FOMO here because maybe they live in parts of the country or parts of the world without access to Green Cheek. Also, want to include anything that they might be able to get their hands on. Any favorite beers for you that are accessible at least across a majority of the United States?
Well, here's a funny thing. We don't have a footprint outside of California technically, but our market, there's a trading market that's massive. And, I think one of the ones that you mentioned earlier was the DDH, the other Brian. So that one, if you get that, because that one, double dry hop, hazy double with citra hops, awesome beer. Like I said, we do ship overnight in California. Anywhere else is bootleg. So if you're getting our beers somewhere else, it's funny. I think it was China that someone was commenting on beers that we had in China. Like, how the hell did you get our beers in China, right? But anyways, yeah, I think the only way to get it is to come our way or find a friend that lives here, and that's what a lot of people do. Ship it and right, send it. So
Yeah, I think that some of the trades can be so handy, and people can ask around if you don't know where to turn. It's kind of like, again, if you're trying to find a bookie, I don't go into a barber shop, go to a bar, see people who are
yeah.
on their phones, and just have a conversation. Similarly with beer trading, if you're not in Green Cheek's footprint in California, it doesn't mean you can't get your hands on it. I will also throw out, if trading isn't your thing, if you're interested in something on the craft side and maybe don't identify as a craft beer drinker yet, a couple of really good transition beers. On the hoppy side, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, an
Yeah.
absolute classic by Sierra Nevada Brewing out of Chico, California. And if hops aren't your thing, maybe on the more approachable side, Allagash White is a really good beer by Allagash Brewing Company out of Portland, Maine. So trade for Green Cheek, try something like a Sierra Nevada Pale, try an Allagash White. I feel like you can't go wrong across the board
Oh,
there.
100%. Both two awesome beers you just called.
All right. Thank you. I will take that as especially high praise coming from you. And Brian, I want to make sure to respect your time and tie a bow around this conversation. Plugging your work. Brian personally can be followed on Instagram at Green Cheek Brian. You can also catch him as the co-host of the Frenchies Friends podcast. Listen to that wherever you get your podcasts. Green Cheek as a whole, you can follow them on Instagram at Green Cheek Beer, greencheekbeer.com. And in person, check out any of the three locations: Orange, Costa Mesa, and Sunset Beach. Once again, beyond the beer, I think there are drinks for every palate, food as well. And Brian, I've got to make one fun reveal here. The merch is pretty killer as well. Not only a Green Cheek t-shirt I've got for this conversation, but just off to the side. Oh boy,
Yes.
this is going to wreck my YouTube posting potentially. You guys have an epic hat that is saving me this summer. I was just out in Palm Springs with my wife for the holiday weekend and chilling in the pool with water up to my shoulders with your wide brim hat just to keep me, sun protected. Beer festivals, this is a perfect go-to. You guys make killer merch. So once again, across the board, I just cannot highly enough endorse the work that you guys are doing. So, Brian, I want to thank you for the time and insight and congratulate you on 6 years and say here's to many more.
Thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate it.
All right. And to the audience, thank you for watching and listening. Thank you for your time. I hope to catch some of you this Saturday at Green Cheek and Orange. And for the rest of you, I'll catch you next week right back here on Props and Hops.